So you might have heard about the controversy around India's slated participation in the Champions Trophy 2025, which is going to take place in Pakistan. You can already guess why that decision for India to participate might be controversial. It's something that's been brewing for several months now. The topic of intense discussions, intense negotiations. Will India go? Won't India go? And we may have seen a breakthrough happen very, very recently, just in the last couple of days. Joining us is, of course, Siddharth Vishwanathan from Sports Today, who will break down for us what exactly has been going on over the last couple of weeks and months about the Champions Trophy, what the controversy is, whether India will go to Pakistan, what the negotiations have been. Siddharth, please take it away. Could you explain to us, just to begin with, what exactly has been the controversy about India and the Champions Trophy 2025, which is slated to be in Pakistan?
Okay. You mentioned one word at the start and the other word at the end. What is it? India, Pakistan. That itself is a big cue for you to ensure that there is controversies galore, because you know the special situation that is there in India and Pakistan because of the bilateral tensions that we've been having over the Kashmir issue, over all the other things that has been dominating India-Pakistan relations for a very long time. Everything changed in 2008 when the Mumbai terror attacks happened. And why I mention the Mumbai terror attacks is because that was the first time the Champions Trophy was impacted. India flatly refused to go to Pakistan, and then the hosting rights were taken away from Pakistan. South Africa managed it in 2009. 15 years later, you're seeing the charade repeat all over again, the circus repeat all over again. I mean, I understand the ICC has got an obligation to rotate sides. Okay, that let this nation host, let this nation host. But honestly, what were they thinking when they gave the tournament to Pakistan? Knowing that India is your superpower, knowing very well that economic-wise, you cannot sidetrack India. Why did you have to host it in Pakistan? That is the one thing that the ICC are now paying dearly at this point in time, with 80 days to go for the Champions Trophy. The controversy is, anybody who follows India, Pakistan, know that if any team wants to go to the respective countries, for example, Pakistan has to go to India, India has to come to Pakistan, you need government approval. Only if the government, the Home Ministry, the Minister of Home Affairs, they give the permission, then and only then they'll be allowed, otherwise they cannot. The indication was that the blind cricket team were not allowed to go to Pakistan for the T20 World Cup. So that was an indication that this Indian cricket team was not going to go. And on cue, the government decided, okay, we are not going to send the team to Pakistan. Now what do you do then? The hybrid model. This is where things take a even more, you may say, peculiar turn. Lot of bluster being shown, but now Pakistan have had to ultimately surrender in that sense.
Right.
So that is the controversy, that India were not going to travel to Pakistan because of the current existing tensions and the bilateral tensions that exist between India and Pakistan.
Right. Let me ask you something very interesting. I think that there's a history to this, of course, when it comes to Pakistan. It's history in hosting tournaments. There was a very prominent terror attack that took place on the Sri Lankan team, if I'm not mistaken.
2009 March.
Exactly, 15 years ago. So could you explain to people some of the background, some history to this in terms of, you know, the instability in Pakistan when it comes to hosting cricket tournaments, why there's been so much tension in the past when it comes to hosting bilateral cricket tournaments and so on?
So, okay, the last time Pakistan hosted an ICC event, which included a World Cup, a T20 World Cup, a Champions Trophy, was way back in 1996. Wow. When Sri Lanka, Pakistan and India co-hosted, Pakistan got the final in Lahore. But then after September 11th, 2001, when the situation deteriorated in Afghanistan also, it spilled over into Pakistan. New Zealand's tour in 2002, the one test was played, the second test was cancelled. You would all be knowing that there was a terror attack at a French naval base in Karachi. That's where the test match was supposed to happen. Over the course of the next 4 to 5 years, we all saw that the situation in Pakistan really escalated out of control. I think with the Lal Masjid siege in Islamabad that happened, things went totally out of control. In 2009, the Nadir happened. 2008, Pakistan last hosted a multi-nation event, the Asia Cup, entirely in Pakistan. But in 2008 and 2008, the terror attacks in Mumbai happened, blamed on Pakistan. 2009, the Sri Lankans were the victims of a terror attack in Lahore.
Right.
After that, teams did not set foot in Pakistan for 6 years. They all played their games in the UAE. Zimbabwe were the first team to make it. But then the situation in Pakistan is such that, call it their bad luck or their own created thing. Just before the Champions Trophy, about a month back, there was a bomb blast at a railway station in Quetta. Now you are seeing the situation in Islamabad where supporters are calling for the release of former Prime Minister Imran Khan.
Absolutely.
So that has escalated out of control. There are sporadic terror attacks that happen in Pakistan. So that is why the situation with them has always been volatile. You alienated India out of that because of what happened in 2008. You still played with them in 2012. But then things really went out of control after February 14, 2019 in Pulwama. When 40 CRPF soldiers were murdered, at that point in time, Pulwama was the tipping point. You couldn't play with Pakistan. There was a very strong demand that India should boycott the World Cup match in Manchester. But that didn't happen. So that is why when it came to hosting, ICC were going to play with fire, and they are playing with fire at this point. There are massive financial repercussions now because you have made the announcement so late.
Right.
So Pakistan, they are not going to get India on their shows, and it is all they are doing, and they'll have to pay the price.
Okay, so I want you to explain something to us, and you asked that question as well. I'm going to turn that question, ask you again. What was the motivation for the ICC to hand this sort of event to Pakistan? I mean, of course, if as you pointed out very rightly, that India, I think, accounts for what, 80% of
38% of the global revenue that it generates.
Exactly, comes from India. Exactly, and most of the subcontinent provides most of the viewership for cricket globally as well. So, where exactly was the ICC coming from? I'm asking you to give us a sense of what's happening inside, these back rooms in the ICC about what fuels a decision like
now, this. We all know that the motto is don't mix politics with sports. Okay, the ICC kind of works on that principle.
Right.
Every nation on this planet, like whoever is a serious cricket content, whoever is a test playing nation, they deserve the right to host a particular ICC event. So the ICC goes by this rotation policy. Okay, supposing you have had one tournament in India, the next tournament could be held in England, the next tournament could be held in the West Indies, the next tournaments could be held in Australia, New Zealand. They go on this rotation cycle every single time. But when it came to Pakistan, the decision was made much earlier. 2025, this decision was made in the previous cycle itself, that yes, from 2024 to 2031, these are the venues that are going to host the ICC events.
Okay.
Pakistan was 2025. But then we have seen it sometimes backfires that yes, you can't have this policy of don't mix politics with sport. I mean, England refused to travel to Zimbabwe in 2003 over what was the Mugabe issue at that point. New Zealand didn't travel to Kenya because of a terror attack that had happened about a couple of years back. I think it was in Tanzania where there were two car bombs in the American embassies that targeted them. So in that sense, they refused to travel. How on earth then were you going to convince India to travel to Pakistan? So in that sense, ICC's cause was noble. Let every nation get a chance to host. But in the case of Pakistan, how could you alienate India? So that is the main motive.
Could you tell us what's going on now behind the scenes? We understand that there has been some sort of, and Sports Today of course also reported this, that there's been some sort of compromise formula that has been arrived on. What exactly is that compromise formula?
Okay, so the hybrid model. When you first heard about the hybrid model, people were asking, what is this? You found it in the Asia Cup of 2023. One particular nation plays its matches in a different country. The host nation, in this case Pakistan, gets to host most of their games. Now in the hybrid model, in the Champions Trophy, what has been proposed is that all India's games, one semi-final and a final, if India make it, will be held in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates. So Pakistan will keep the hosting rights. All the gate receipts will go to the PCB. The UAE doesn't get anything. Now, Pakistan has belatedly, or you may say begrudgingly, wanting to accept the hybrid model, because if they did not accept the hybrid model and they insisted that they play the entire tournament in Pakistan, looking at the security situation, India would have had to pull out. And an ICC cricket tournament without India is inconceivable.
Right.
So, Pakistan would have had to ensure that India doesn't come, so the ICC Champions Trophy has no relevance. So they had to agree to that. Some form of monetary compensation in that would come to them. They have begrudgingly agreed to the hybrid model on two conditions. They are presenting the two conditions to the ICC. Condition number one, if India doesn't make it to the final, then the final should be held in Lahore. That's a fair assessment. Okay, let's give that as a fair thing. The second bit, any ACC or ICC tournaments that India will be hosting we will then ensure that we play our games hybrid. So Pakistan will not travel to India. They will not make the mistake that they did in 2023. Because in 2023, what we saw was that Pakistan came to India for the ICC World Cup, but now India is not reciprocating. So Mohsin Naqvi, the PCB has said, no, it cannot be like this. We have to have an equal relationship. So Pakistan will not travel to India for ICC events. We will play hybrid.
Good.
Will the ICC agree to that? We don't know. But there is very little chance of a clash there, because 2026, when India are hosting the T20 World Cup, it has been co-hosted with Sri Lanka. 2031, the ODI World Cup has been co-hosted with Bangladesh. So Pakistan can play all their games in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh respectively when the tournaments happen. Your only bone of contention is going to be the Champions Trophy, which will be hosted somewhere around 2029 in India, if I'm not mistaken. And the Asia Cup.
Right.
That is entirely in India. Now, how is Pakistan going to cope up with that? And where will India have its hybrid model? Will it be Sri Lanka? That is the situation.
Understood. Could you tell us a little bit about the fact that just today the news came out that Jai Shah, who is of course the chief of the BCCI, will now be taking over as the chief of the ICC. Is that likely to lead to a result that is much more favourable to India? Explain the political dynamics of someone going from BCCI chief to ICC chief. And also, if I may say, just some of the background to this is Jai Shah also of course said when he was BCCI chief that Pakistan hosting events that are in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, India would not find acceptable in any way. So he's coming from that background. So now going to ICC chief, how does that impact it? Because of course normally now he is the international chief, not really just the Indian chief.
What a way to get your first assignment, sort out Champions Trophy medal as your first major assignment. But I think Jai Shah is a very smart operator in that sense. He's a very smart administrator. What I think, this hybrid model suggestion and maybe these two conditions, he may agree on one of them, but I don't think he'll agree. There's also a demand that Pakistan get an increased revenue percentage as compensation, because they get about 6% of the revenue. They are wanting to double that or triple that. I think that won't be agreed upon by the ICC, because honestly then you are killing the other teams off also when it comes to the revenue aspect. So Jai Shah will be a smart operator. I think the hybrid model will get acceptance. Pakistan, I think, has begrudgingly agreed to it because Jai Shah is interviewed. That's what I would like to believe in. So he's already stepped up, and for 2-3 years he will handle the ICC quite well. And I think the politics also of it, he will know when to keep Pakistan at bay. I think he plays the waiting game pretty well. He managed to get Pakistan here when the ICC World Cup was been there.
Right.
Now in the Champions Trophy medals, you only have 80 days remaining. How on earth are you going to get them to agree to that? Now the broadcasters are really going to be furious. They will demand increased money from the ICC, because only 80 days, you haven't given us the logistics, you haven't given us everything to set up marketing, anything, nothing's been done. Where is the hype around it? So that's why now Jai Shah will have to bring all parties together. I think the hybrid model is the brainchild of his thing only.
Understood. Understood. Siddharth Vishwanathan of Sports Today sitting down with us, explaining to us what's going on with the Champions Trophy set to be held in Pakistan, whether we'll see this new hybrid model, how Jai Shah will fare as ICC chief, coming in of course today and being forced to handle this as his first major crisis as chief of the ICC. But Siddharth, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, and good luck if Jai Shah is watching this. And Siddharth, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. And thank you so much for joining us here. We will keep getting Siddharth in as major sports stories break, and of course we have the World Chess Championships going on as well, which Siddharth is tracking very closely. So hopefully, if you would like to have Siddharth here, please let us know and we will absolutely have him back. Thank you so much again for watching us.
Subscribe to India Today Global.